Joining us right now, he is back from not a sabbatical. He has been carrying out, he's the closest thing to a spy that we know. Stephen Yates, he's not actually a spy for the conspiracy theorists who watch. I'm going to
No
give
one will
somebody.
believe that now.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be like, see where he broadcasts from? Do you see where he's at? He's in a spy bunker. You can find, he's got a new handle on Twitter, @YatesComms. And he's up on my timeline, too, if you'd like to go follow him. Stephen joins us now. First off, Happy New Year to you, my friend. Good to see you. Glad to see you back in the bunker. And I want to get into all of this. I have to ask you, because we lost you for a time. And to everyone who's watched, Stephen joins us of his own leisure weekly when he can, to give really valuable insight to the millions of people who listen to the show across the country. And we respect his opinion on these foreign policy issues more so than anyone else, because he just has such a great read on it. And so we lost him there for a little bit to Radio Free Asia. And I was just all questions when I was reading this story about, you get a new administration in, and anyone that the old administration appointees that they appoint, everybody has to go, kind of. Is that, because I think that you, being over at Radio Free Asia, I know that there were a lot of questions about the influence that was happening with the news direction and all of this, and from the Trump administration, which I think is a good thing considering what we're up against with China. I don't know how much you can say about it. We are glad to have you back, but was that the case? Just the old appointees go and...
Well, Dana, it shouldn't have been the case with Radio Free Asia. Radio Free Asia is a private organization. It's not a political organization. It's funded by the U.S. government. The Congress appropriates funds. The administration signs onto the budgets. And then they give grants to private organizations to do some of these missions. The mission of Radio Free Asia is to push truth and news into markets where they don't have a free press. So like into China, or on behalf of the Uyghurs that had been identified as suffering under genocide as Secretary Pompeo was heading out of his tenure of office. The demonstrators in Hong Kong, people suffering in North Korea, elsewhere. So the mission of Radio Free Asia is not political, but it is anti-authoritarian, anti-communist in many ways, and certainly one to push back on all the very, very negative influences that the Chinese Communist Party has been having. And as you know from our discussions for over 10 years now, that's been a big part of my life. I speak Mandarin. I started my career as a missionary, but then in intelligence, then in think tanks and government, and then in the private sector, just trying to speak on behalf of the oppressed, whether it's the people of Taiwan that just want to be left alone to live their own democratic way of life, or it's like the Uyghurs who are being essentially snuffed out culturally, politically, and otherwise by an aggressive Communist Party of China. So I went there, and it was not a political appointment. In fact, I never had a political appointment in the Trump administration. And I was caught among, I think, a very, very unprecedentedly militant transition that has overreached, violating grant agreements with these organizations, violating an employment contract with me. And it's the same thing happened with some others. And the question is why? Why in the world would the new Biden administration, when they've got so many crises that they whine about every day that they have to handle, why would they bother to try to engage in this kind of political jihad through these broadcasting elements? And all it can lead me to wonder is, well, maybe they don't want people who have lived these missions helping these organizations be more effective in pushing these arguments out into these countries. And so we're going to have some fun negotiations through the court system, I assume. Always a joy to avail ourselves of the freedom of that. But no, it wasn't just the usual politics. This was extraordinary politics, and I think they overstepped.
Yeah, I know that there are concerns with now, how is that message going to change going through Radio Free Asia? Because as you said, there's so many places where this news is broadcast into. I mean, they don't get free news. You don't get to. It's not like they have a free press where you can question the authoritative government over there. They don't really have that kind of crack. I mean, for crying out loud, Jack Ma goes missing because he says a couple of things, and he's not even in the press. He's a billionaire. But yeah, that I hope that is resolved, and I worry now about what kind of information is going to be broadcast over there, this independent entity, and why that should be part of the political cleaning of house I mean, it just leads reasonable people to conclude that it was a partisan effort to get someone like you, critical of China, out of that position. My 2 cents.
They're certainly going to have to fight that appearance. I wish I could say that there were no Republicans involved in all of this. But when it comes to kind of over-personalizing policy and politics, the president's effect on how other people react may have affected some Republicans too. And there were certainly views about the outgoing CEO of the broadcast groups. But my view has always been, it's a big mistake to over-personalize politics. Focus on the policy and the substance. That's something you can measure, you can verify, get your head around. You literally go crazy with all this personality stuff. And I think that they've let their craziness harm a mission that is more vital now than it's ever been. I mean, really, what challenge is greater to the United States and the entire world right now than the aggressive militarization of information, money, and other means by the Chinese Communist Party? I just think it's far and away mission number one.
I agree. I completely agree. And of course, that goes with that's the other groups that you mentioned. That's all under the U.S. Agency for Global Media. I always think that that's one of the most important things I think the United States could do. And to be able to export that type of information out and be able to compete for attention in sometimes hostile areas is incredibly important because it helps us in the longer run. I think it's important for our national security even. There
was a very nefarious thing that they were trying to do in this transition. They were trying to accuse us of essentially hijacking taxpayer-funded grantee organizations and turning them into Trump TV or something like that. When in reality, regardless of what my political views were, my enemy was overseas. And I was trying to help manage and push uncomfortable truths out to these hostile governments. There was never any evidence of me or my counterparts overdoing American politics in the broadcast. In fact, we never interfered. Now the reverse is true. They're actually using resources to brag about a presidential administration. And so it's what I think your listeners and viewers will know now. It's complete hypocrisy. They are doing what they've accused others of doing.
Yes. As Kane noted, it's like a sort of in a way like an NPR, except actually useful and truth-telling and serving a greater overall purpose, because it is. I mean, it absolutely has to do with, I think, securing, national security. And
if it's not going to work, then get the taxpayer money out of it.
Yeah. And one last quick point on this, because I know we're already running out of time, but to me, it just seems that this kind of is going along with so many other things that we've seen in the past 4 years, where there are people on the left that have no problem aligning themselves with accusations from communist China if they think that it's going to serve their partisan efforts. And this seems to be one of those things. I mean, people can sit here and act like it's Trump TV, which it wasn't, but that's no one's going to question that. They'll throw Trump in as a deflection, as a way to hide really ultimately what this is, rooting out something that is critical and maybe a challenge to the authority of the Chinese Communist Party.
Absolutely. There's a part of my brain that just hurts every time we deal with this stuff, and it doesn't seem to stop. You'd really like to believe people are going to grow up and just sort of sensibly see that we have seriously some big things on the horizon that we need to tackle. And if we don't, everyone can lather themselves on what they want to bloviate to each other. But these are very serious, enduring enemies that don't have our best interests at heart. They're hurting other people on the road to hurting us. Yeah. And so we've got to figure out how we deal with this. And so, I mean, some of those headlines you were talking about are really the early tests and the tripwires of, are these people going to pull their heads out of Trump derangement and just being not Trump, or are they actually going to govern the United States, make us and the world safer? And I'm not heartened by the early moves. Yeah, no, nor am I. And this situation happening, I noticed, let me pull this up. I noticed another piece as well going along with this. Japanese media was even reporting how this carrier, now we're sending our own carriers into South China Sea because these Chinese bombers are flying near Taiwan. Now, I mean, this could be kind of par for the course, or just like regular old saber rattling, but I don't know, with the new administration, knowing that we're looking at a completely different approach to China, Russia, other of our, I guess, opposition, you could say it. I don't have a lot of confidence in the response of this administration should things get wacky over there, just to
reduce it down to that, Stephen. Last topic here. What is this going to turn into? I mean, how is this going to work with the new Biden administration?
Well, they're going to have to step up. I mean, really, so far, the Chinese are testing boundaries. And Secretary Pompeo, I think, was an historic Secretary of State in terms of how he talked about the Communist Party of China, the threat it challenged, presented to us and our allies. The first words out of the Biden State Department and White House are, well, we want meaningful dialogue and peaceful resolution of differences. And while they'll use some of the rhetoric of the realities of recent past, the punchline of Jen Psaki's remarks was, we're going to have strategic patience. That's what the Obama 8-year policy was. We know what strategic patience is. It means we're not going to do anything and we're going to talk and hope you'll just talk. And all that does to the Chinese is say, it's a go signal. You're facing no meaningful resistance. And that's going to increase these kinds of challenges in the South China Sea, Taiwan, and elsewhere. And it betrays our allies.
Yeah, for all the people that were upset over the tough talking as they interpreted it from the administration, it did serve a purpose because it showed that they don't have a green light to pull this and deflects. Stephen Yates, it's good to have you back, and we're going to be watching that story with Radio Free Asia, obviously with interest, and hope for the best outcome. Always so good to see you, and thanks so much for being so generous with your time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Dana. Take care.